You ever stood in front of a mirror, whispering a name 3 times, just to see what would happen? Or maybe you've checked the backseat of your car late at night, just in case. These stories, we've all heard them, passed down at sleepovers, shared around campfires, or whispered in school hallways. Bloody Mary, the Hook Man, the killer in the backseat. But what if they are more than just stories? What if there's a sliver of truth hiding in the shadows? Tonight, we unravel the chilling origins and real-life inspirations behind the legends that haunt our collective memory. But first, let's take a moment to reflect on the time that's passed. Did you know today marks 27.40% of 2025? That's 14 weeks and 2 days into the year. 100 days total. 2,400 hours, 144,000 minutes, and an astonishing 8,640,000 seconds of this wild ride. Time is moving fast, and who knows what new stories will emerge from the shadows in the next stretch of those seconds. This isn't just ghost stories for fun. This is urban legends, the true stories behind the myths. Welcome to Time Warp Thursday.
The following is rated TV MA and is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Hey there, time travelers. Welcome to another spine-tingling episode of Time Warp Thursday, the show where we journey through time, unravel myths, explore mysteries, and dive into everything that makes our world just a little bit stranger. I'm Jonathan Riley, your host and guide into the unknown, and tonight we've got something truly eerie lined up for you. Get ready for a ride through the shadowy world of urban legends. Those creepy, cryptic stories that have haunted sleepovers, inspired countless horror movies, and have been whispered through generations. You've heard the names, you know the tales, but what if there's more to them than meets the eye? Today, we're not just telling the stories, we're digging deep into their origins, their real-life inspirations, and how these legends have evolved over the years. How did they start? Why have they stuck around for so long? And are there pieces of truth hiding within the myths? But before we dive in, let's set the mood. Light a candle, lock your car doors, and maybe, just maybe, don't look in the mirror just yet. Because tonight, we're about to uncover the true stories behind the myths. We'll be exploring the chilling origins of some of the most iconic urban legends, like Bloody Mary, the Hook Man, and the Killer in the Backseat. Stories that have made their way into pop culture and still send shivers down our spines. But what if these legends weren't just invented to scare us? What if they're based on real events or experiences that just got twisted and exaggerated over time? So stay tuned, because this is going to be a wild ride through history, mystery, and the creepy corners of our collective imaginations. Who knows, by the end of this episode, you might find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about these well-known tales. And remember, time is never what it seems on Time Warp Thursday. But first, let's start off the show. Before we get into some of these urban legends, I was happy to do an interview with Brownell Landrum today, and we will put that on first. And then after her interview, we will go into some of these urban legends. So I hope you enjoyed the interview, and I'll be back afterwards with some of the scary little stories that we all heard growing up. And probably everybody been scared by these stories at one point or another in their lives. But, just let's dive in and, see what these urban legends have in real life. What brought them on? But first, Brownell Landrum. Yeah, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Time Warp Thursday. Supposed to be interviewing this spot, but the interview didn't happen because I messed up and slept in and had a crazy night. I was up most of the night. I could not sleep. And then I just slept in, so I wasn't online in time to do the interview with Brownell Landrum. But then I emailed her and told her, she could reschedule, but I haven't heard back from her about that yet. Last night was, I was trying to sleep, and our new puppy, I love our new puppy, but she like chewing on my arm and licking my arm and keeping me awake. And then like licking my nose and getting up in my mug. She even messing up the screen. I can tell you, man, this is craziness. So anyways, no interview, but here goes segment one. We'll just jump in and go with it, okay? And over the next few weeks, gonna have a little add-on to my YouTube channel and my radio show here, talk radio show. A little companion thing called Talk Radio Mini, Talk Radio Minis. I'll be posting like weekday mornings, like a little teeny Talk Radio Mini, like a little quick little thing. to like either give you motivation for the day or just kind of, you know, stuff like that. So you can check those out, and then weeknights you can watch the talk radio regular show. But anyways, we'll get into segment one before this messes up, or before the dog messes up the green screen, or before something happens. With my luck, the dog will pull down the whole green screen, and then there's no background, and I look like a fool. And I don't want to look like a fool. I want to make these shows good and be like, I want to continue to work hard on these and dedicate myself to doing these and having you all enjoy it. So far, Wednesday nights are always my popular one. I get the most views on my Wednesday shows. But I'm working on the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, trying to get those caught up to Wednesday. We'll get there sooner or later. You know. So, and then tomorrow, Friday the 11th of April, I'm going to be having Dandy's World Live return. So the people who like to play Dandy's World with me on my live stream, and it'll be live, not pre-recorded for the Dandy's World Live. Dandy's World Live. So yeah, it's going to be live. But talk radio is going to continue to stay pre-recorded for now. And then the talk radio minis that I start doing, those will be pre-recorded and just uploaded for you to watch on the mornings, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, the weekday mornings. And I hope you all enjoy those. So I will see you in a second when the segment number one. Alright, I'm back. Time travelers. Dim the lights, close the door, and lean in close, because tonight we're diving deep into the shadowy world of urban legend, folklore, and fear. Let's begin with a name whispered through generations. A name that echoes through school hallways, across slumber parties, and inside darkened bathrooms where brave or foolish souls dared to speak it aloud. Bloody Mary. You know the ritual, don't you? You stand before a mirror, usually with just a flickering candle as your only source of light. The room must be dark, still, silent. And then you say her name, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And then what happens? Some say she appears in the mirror, her face twisted, bloodied, eyes hollow, full of rage. Others say she screams, a sound so shrill and unnatural it shatters glass. And some say she reaches through, pulling you in, trapping you in a cold, hellish reflection of our world, where time doesn't move and you'll never be seen again. But where did this terrifying tale actually come from? Is Bloody Mary just a ghost story told to scare kids? Or does she have roots in something far darker and far more real? Let's peel back the centuries. One of the earliest and most horrifying connections is to Mary Tudor, also known as Mary I of England. She reigned during the 16th century, and her name became synonymous with blood. In her attempt to restore Catholicism, how do you say that? The Catholic stuff. Catholicism. She ordered the execution of over 280 Protestants, burning them alive. The air during her reign was thick with smoke, screams, and fear. She became known as Bloody Mary, a queen haunted by guilt or possessed by vengeance. Now, let's imagine this. A woman condemned in history, her name twisted into folklore. Some say her restless spirit could not move on, that the countless souls she burned cried out for justice, and dragged her into the realm between life and death, where mirrors became her prison, her window, her weapon. But her story doesn't stop there. In the 19th century, we find another eerie layer, young women performing divination rituals with mirrors. These weren't ghost stories. These were real practices. By candlelight, they would gaze into the glass, hoping to glimpse their future husband. But instead of a loving face, some claimed to see something else. A skull, a shadowy figure, a pale woman watching from the darkness. Some fainted, others screamed. One girl reportedly scratched out her own eyes, claiming she saw the devil staring back at her. Folklorists believe that this blending of historical horror and ritual superstition is what gave birth to the Bloody Mary legend as we know it. But the question still lingers. Why the mirror? Let's talk psychology. A mirror is not just a reflection. It's a portal to perception. Think about it. It's you. But not really you. It's reversed. It's silent. And when you stare long enough, especially in low light, your mind starts to distort what it sees. This phenomenon is known as the strange face illusion, where your brain, when deprived of detail and contrast, starts filling in the blanks, often with terrifying results. Faces melt, eyes darken, mouths twist. It's not a ghost. It's your own fear staring back at you. And yet, legends like Bloody Mary persist. Why? Because deep down inside of us all, there's a fear we rarely speak aloud. The fear that the reflection might blink when we don't. That it might smile when we don't. That something else might be looking back. So let me ask you, time traveler, have you ever stood in front of a mirror and felt watched? Felt the air change even just for a second? Have you ever said her name not out of belief, but out of curiosity? Because belief isn't required. Only the ritual. But before we go any further, let's pause here, take a breath, if you dare, and ask yourself this. Could Bloody Mary be more than a story, a cautionary tale, a warning not to tamper with the unknown, or perhaps a manifestation of our darkest collective fears, passed down like a curse from one generation to the next? Bloody Mary slowly in the background. Because whether it's history, hysteria, or something else entirely, the mirror is watching, and Bloody Mary is always waiting. Now let's get into some real encounters and reflections. It's one thing to talk about the Bloody Mary legend in theory. It's another thing entirely to hear the stories of people who swear they came face to face with something or someone after chanting her name. Let's talk about these sightings. Across the country, across the world, even. People have shared eerily similar experiences after performing the Bloody Mary ritual. Not just kids hyping themselves up at sleepovers, adults, paranormal investigators, even skeptics who decided to give it a try, just to prove it was nonsense. Here's one reported account. A teenage girl in Ohio, dared by friends during a party, entered the bathroom with a candle. She locked the door, faced the mirror, and whispered the name 3 times. According to her, nothing happened, at first. But just as she turned to leave, she saw movement in the glass, a dark figure standing just behind her. When she spun around, the room was empty. But when she looked back at the mirror, the figure was closer. She screamed, ran out of the bathroom, and that might have been the end of it. Except she later developed 3 deep, parallel scratches down her back. Interesting. Another case out of the UK, a college student did the ritual during a Halloween party. When he looked in the mirror, he claimed the reflection of his own eyes turned black, pitch black. He thought he was hallucinating, until a guest at the party took a photo of him in the mirror. In the photo, his eyes were still black, but only in the reflection. And let's not forget the infamous case of twins in Chicago. The story goes that in the early 1990s, 2 sisters performed a ritual on a dare. Only one of them walked out. The other collapsed, unconscious. When she woke, she couldn't speak for over a week. She kept scribbling the same words over and over on a notepad. She was watching me. Creepy. Absolutely. But let's step back and look at this through another lens. Science suggests that the effects people experience during the Bloody Mary ritual might be the result of something called trochlear fading. It's a visual phenomenon where staring at one point for too long, especially in low light, causes your peripheral vision to fade or distort. Combine that with a flickering candle and a suggestible mind, and suddenly your brain starts to play tricks on you. Faces morph, shadows twist, and fear does the rest. But here's what's strange. If this were just a psychological trick, why do so many stories include physical marks, scratches, bruises, cold spots, or that overwhelming, unshakable feeling of being watched for hours, even days after the ritual? Some believe that the mirror doesn't create the spirit, it just invites it. That saying her name is a summoning act. That our fear acts like a beacon in the dark, calling out to something that was already waiting. And the truth is, whether you believe or not, the Bloody Mary legend has burrowed into our collective consciousness. She's appeared in books, horror movies, and TV shows. Her story gets passed down like a campfire tale, updated for each generation. Proof that folklore is a living, breathing thing. But maybe, just maybe, it's more than a story. Maybe Bloody Mary isn't just a ghost. She's a mirror, a reflection of our deepest, darkest fears. And every time someone dares to speak her name, they're not summoning her. They're summoning what they're afraid of the most. All right, time travelers. Keep your eyes on the rearview mirror and your doors locked, because we're driving deeper into the dark forest of urban legends. This time, we're talking about one of the most iconic cautionary tales ever whispered at campfires, or murmured between giggles during high school dates. The Hook Man. Let's rewind and set the scene again. It's a warm evening. The stars are out. A young couple has escaped the prying eyes of adults, parked along a wooded road. Lover's Lane. The air feels alive, electric with anticipation. The car stereo is low, humming a love song, until it cuts off into static. Then a new bulletin erupts. Authorities report a patient has escaped from the local asylum. He's considered armed and dangerous. His right hand has been replaced with a metal hook. Suddenly, the couple hears a strange noise. Scratch, scratch, scrape, like something being dragged slowly across metal. Panic sets in. They speed off into the night, and when they finally stop, they find it. A bloody hook embedded in the door handle. Chills, right? But this legend isn't just about fright. It's a warning. A morality tale dressed in horror. Origins and evolution? More than just a scary story. The Hookman legend first gained traction in the 50s, and it's no coincidence. America was changing fast. Teens were becoming a cultural force. Rock and roll, drive-in movies, and rebellious attitudes started challenging the norms of the older generation. And what better way to scare teens back in line than with a gory, unforgettable story? Parents and preachers alike saw the Hookman story as a perfect parable. Don't sneak off to Lover's Lane, or something bad will happen. But here's where it gets more disturbing. This wasn't pulled out of thin air. There were real-life cases in the 1940s and 1950s of escaped convicts, violent criminals, and even hook-handed men being involved in roadside attacks. One case in particular, involving a man who lost his hand and was accused of stalking couples in Pennsylvania, helped spark rumors that spiraled into legend. Urban legends often latch on to real fears and twist them into unforgettable lore. a global architect, the Watcher, in the woods. You think this is just an American story? Think again. Similar legends exist in Europe, where phantom stalkers or vengeful forest spirits target lovers who break social taboos. In Japan are tales of the Kuchisaki Onna, the slit-mouthed woman who appears to lone travelers, often in intimate or vulnerable moments. In every corner of the world, there's a version of this archetype. The Watcher, the Punisher, the stranger who reminds you you're not as alone as you think. The Hookman represents something deeper than just horror. He is a manifestation of societal guilt, repressed fears, and the perceived dangers of freedom, especially the kind of freedom that young people were starting to demand in the mid-20th century. The Hookman didn't just stay in whispered stories. He slashed his way into popular culture, appearing in everything from books to horror films. One of the most memorable renditions, Urban Legend 1998, a slasher film that reimagines classic myths, including the Hookman. And who could forget the supernatural TV series episode titled Hookman, where the ghost of a preacher's vengeful spirit haunts those who commit sins of lust. Even in comedy and cartoons, the image persists. It's that iconic. Why? Because the Hookman isn't just a character. He's a symbol. A reminder that danger is never far. And even your most private, stolen memory moment of joy could be interrupted by terror. In today's world, the Hookman may look different. Maybe he wears a hoodie instead of a long coat. Maybe he lurks behind a screen instead of a tree. But the story persists because the core fear remains unchanged. Are we truly safe? Or are we ever truly safe? Even with high-tech cars, security apps, and digital maps, being alone, being vulnerable, being young, and in love, still comes with risks. It's why this tale gets passed down again and again, because the Hookman doesn't just haunt the forest. He haunts that moment when you let your guard down, when you think nothing bad could ever happen to you. And that's why, next time you pull into a quiet parking lot, when you turn off your engine, when you hear a faint tap on your window, don't ignore it. Maybe it's just a tree branch, or maybe he's back, waiting for the next couple who thinks the rules don't apply to them. All right, night riders, keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel, because this next tale isn't just an urban legend. It's a warning that still echoes every time we slide behind a wheel alone. Imagine this. You're driving home after a long day. It's dark, too dark. The road ahead stretches endlessly, barely lit by flickering street lamps and the occasional neon glow from closed-down diners and gas stations. The world feels quiet, still, almost too still. The hum of your tires against the pavement becomes rhythmic, almost soothing. The radio crackles faintly. You're tired, thinking about getting home, maybe a warm shower, maybe your bed. You glance in the rearview mirror. A pair of headlights appears, closer still. At first, you brush it off. Just another late-night driver. But then flash, the car behind you blinks its high beams once, twice, then again. Maybe they're trying to pass. No, they're not backing off. They're following, matching your speed. The lights flash again. Panic creeps in. You pull over, nerves spiking. Your breath quickens, and then someone approaches your window. Maybe a gas station attendant. Maybe a cop. Their face is pale, eyes wide, and they say the words that make your blood freeze. There's someone in your back seat. That's the moment when reality shatters, and all the false sense of security the car gave you disappears in a heartbeat. You weren't alone. Not for the past 10 miles. Not when you stopped for coffee. Not even when you first pulled out of that parking lot. He was there, the killer, silent, watching, waiting. The origin of the killer in Backseat goes beyond fiction. While there are dozens of versions of the story, some dating as far back as the 1960s, it's believed to be loosely inspired by real-life crimes. One chilling case in 1964 involved a woman in New York who was murdered by a man who was hiding in her car. Over the years, similar incidents were reported, enough to fuel growing fears, especially among women and late-night drivers. Suddenly, the story wasn't just a spooky tale whispered around campfires. It was practical advice disguised as folklore. Check your back seat. Always. And that's what makes this legend so terrifying. It feels real. It could happen. It's not a ghost or a demon or something conjured from folklore. It's a human predator exploiting one of the most vulnerable positions we find ourselves in. Alone, distracted, boxed in, and trusting that the metal cage we call a car will protect us. But what if that cage is already compromised? Think about it. How often do we jump into our car, tossing our bags in the seat, fiddling with the radio, checking our phones, starting the engine without ever glancing behind us? How often do we let down our guard because we assume we are safe? The genius of the story, if you can call it that, is how it flips our perspective. The real fear isn't out there. It's already inside. And worse, we didn't even notice. From a psychological standpoint, this urban legend taps into some of our deepest primal fears. Being stalked or hunted. Being unaware of immediate danger. Having nowhere to run. And perhaps most frightening of all, being betrayed by our own trust. And then there's the figure in the back seat, silent, still, patient. A symbol of what we ignore, what we overlook, what hides in our blind spots, both literally and metaphorically. It could be a stranger, or it could be our own guilt, our own trauma, riding silently with us. There's also something poetic, in a haunting way, about the person behind you trying to warn you, flashing their lights, honking, waving, doing everything they can to get your attention, not to harm you, but to save you. Yet in our fear, we assume they are the threat. A brutal metaphor for how we often misjudge danger, focusing on the wrong source while the real threat lurks unseen. So next time you're out driving late at night, do me a favor. Before you lock the doors, before you start the engine, before you head down that dark road, turn around. Check your back seat, because you never know what or who might already be there, waiting in silence just inches away. So now it's your turn, time travelers. After journeying through ghostly highways, shadowy fears, and spine-chilling legends, what do you believe? Which of tonight's stories stuck with you the most? Was it the vanishing hitchhiker, the killer in the back seat, or maybe the woman on the side of the road that crept under your skin? These tales blur the lines between myth and memory, fear and folklore, and they have a way of lingering, don't they? But it wasn't just the legends that sent our minds spinning. We also had the special guest, Brownell Landrum, who spoke about some of her books and things like that, which was a pretty good conversation, and I appreciate and thank her for being on the show. What resonated most was her work with her books, what she writes about. Not totally, urban legend stuff, but it's stuff that makes you think. So now we open the floor to you. What did you think of Brownell's stories and stuff? Do you believe urban legends like the ones we told tonight are rooted in truth, or perhaps in a deeper truth we haven't fully uncovered yet? We want to hear from you. Drop a comment, tag us in your thoughts, or even better, share your own chilling tale or mysterious experience. You might just end up featured in a future episode of Time Warp Thursday. Don't forget to use our hashtags so we can find your stories. Time Warp Thursday. Hashtag Urban Legend. Urban Legends. Or hashtag Myth or Truth. Thanks for riding with me tonight through time, terror, and truth. Whether you're a full-on believer, a hardened skeptic, or floating somewhere in between, I'm just glad you made the trip with us. I'm Jonathan Riley, and this has been Time Warp Thursday. Until next time, stay curious, stay weird, and maybe, just maybe, don't look behind you, because sometimes the real story is right there in the shadows.